Hello everyone and welcome to a brand new Rise and Fall video. Today we're going to be looking at the career and the life outside of the ring for Alberto Del Rio. I nearly said it in the Ricardo Rodriguez voice, but I refrained. This video is going to deal with some sensitive themes, so viewer discretion is advised. We're going to discuss his runs in TNA, WWE, and jail. My name is Thompson Wrestling, subscribe with notifications on, and let's get into it. In 2009, Jose Rodriguez officially signed with the WWE and reported to their developmental territory, Florida Championship Wrestling. In FCW, he wrestled with a mask on under many different names, including Dos Caras, Dos Dorado, and El Dorado. After about a year in FCW, vignettes began airing on SmackDown, hyping up the debut of Rodriguez, who was now unmasked and called Alberto Del Rio, playing the character of a rich Mexican aristocrat. After 2 months of vignettes, Del Rio would officially make his SmackDown TV debut on the August 20th episode, defeating Rey Mysterio in the main event of the show, a huge win for him. Soon after this, Del Rio would officially start entering the ring in a car, well, the stage in his car, and his personal ring announcer Ricardo Rodriguez debuted and he would announce him to the ring. Del Rio would represent Team SmackDown in the Bragging Rights pay-per-view, where he was eliminated from the match, but SmackDown would still go on to win. His feud with Rey Mysterio continued all the way to Survivor Series, where it was Team Rey versus Team Del Rio, with Team Rey getting the win. Del Rio would then go on to wrestle his first world title match in a 4-way TLC match with himself, Kane, Rey Mysterio, and Edge at the TLC pay-per-view, where Edge would win. Del Rio's feud with Rey Mysterio would finally come to an end in January when Del Rio defeated Mysterio in a 2 out of 3 falls match on SmackDown. Del Rio was quickly rising in the company and would go on to make history, as in 2011 he became the first and only person to win a 40-person Royal Rumble match when he last eliminated Santino Marella. Yes, Santino Marella, to win the match and receive a world title shot against Edge at Wrestlemania, which he would lose. Del Rio would get another world title shot, this time against Christian at Extreme Rules, which he lost again. Okay, maybe we're moving a bit too quick, but the next night on Raw, Del Rio was drafted to Raw, and it was going to be a whole new beginning for him, as he would win the Raw Money in the Bank briefcase at the famous Money in the Bank 2011 pay-per-view. He also tried to cash it in, but CM Punk kicked the crap out of him before he even had the chance, so unlucky there, mate. Del Rio would hold the briefcase for just under a month, as he would cash it in on CM Punk at SummerSlam after he was laid out by Kevin Nash. Awful, awful, awful. Del Rio as WWE Champion, he's finally won it. He may have won it under questionable circumstances, but he's finally a world champion after numerous attempts. So hopefully his reign is good. No, it's not. He literally lost it at the next pay-per-view Night of Champions to John Cena, only to gain it back at Hell in a Cell 2 weeks later in a 3-way match, also involving CM Punk. He'd retain it over Cena at Vengeance later that month, good stuff, but then lose it to Punk the next month at Survivor Series, and never win the title again. What? Yeah, Alberto Del Rio as WWE Champion was a complete bust. He was a 2-time champion, but his reigns probably totaled about 50 days at best. Del Rio would float around the roster in 2012, mainly feuding with Sheamus for the World Heavyweight Championship in one of the longest, unbearable, and just one-sided feuds in history. Sheamus won literally every match. I'm not even kidding, Sheamus beat Del Rio at every pay-per-view for the title. At December's TLC pay-per-view, Del Rio would turn face for the first time in his WWE career as he teamed with The Miz and the Brooklyn Brawler to defeat 3MB. What a sentence. Del Rio was now playing a defiant Latino babyface character, and in January 2013, he would defeat The Big Show to win the World Heavyweight title. Thank God. I'm kidding, because the next few months were absolutely awful. At Wrestlemania, Del Rio would defend the title against Jack Swagger. Yes, this is how far the big gold belt had fallen. from Randy Orton, Batista, Undertaker, Edge, to Del Rio facing Jack Swagger at the biggest pay-per-view of the year. Del Rio would retain the title in one of the most forgettable matches, but the next night on Raw, Dolph Ziggler would cash in his Money in the Bank contract on Del Rio to win the world title in an absolutely awesome moment. However, things went sour when Ziggler got concussed and was out for 2 months until the Payback pay-per-view, when Del Rio won the title back in a match that saw them have a double turn, making Del Rio a heel again. Del Rio would hold the title for most of the year until he lost it to Cena, who would lose it to Orton, where the titles were unified, making Del Rio one of the last ever World Heavyweight Champions. And throughout 2014, Del Rio really didn't have a place in the roster. He wrestled at the Armbar, the Andre the Giant Battle Royal at WrestleMania. He was in a Money in the Bank ladder match for the WWE title and lost. And in general, he just lost and lost and lost. Then, out of nowhere, Alberto Del Rio was released from the WWE on August 7, 2014 for unprofessional conduct. Allegedly, the reason Del Rio was released from the company was because he slapped a worker who made a racist joke towards him. And whether you like Del Rio or not, I don't, him being fired for this is so unjustified and is just peak WWE at its finest. And WWE must have realized that this was unjustified as well, as after a year of wrestling on the indies in companies such as Ring of Honor and Lucha Underground, Del Rio was rehired by the WWE. Del Rio shockingly returned at the 2015 Hell in a Cell pay-per-view, being introduced by Zeb Colter, who said that America and Mexico should unite. Del Rio answered John Cena's United States Championship Open Challenge and won the title in very convincing fashion. It was a genuine shock when he returned. After a couple of months with the title, he would join the League of Nations along with Rusev, Barrett and Sheamus, one of the worst stables ever. His alliance with Zeb Colter, that never went anywhere and was completely unexplained, would slowly fade away, and he'd start feuding with Jack Swagger because their first feud went so well, and all of a sudden, this is starting to seem like deja vu for Alberto Del Rio. In January of 2016, Del Rio lost the title to Kalisto, won it back, then lost it to Kalisto again, all in the space of about 3 weeks, and at WrestleMania, he and the rest of the League of Nations defeated the New Day before being beaten up by Shawn Michaels, Steve Austin, and Mick Foley. This WrestleMania was awful, and so was this match. The League of Nations would soon break up with no real reason, and then Del Rio would find himself floating around the roster once again. On August 18th, he was suspended for violating the wellness policy, and on August 30th, it was reported that Del Rio was exercising an opt-out clause in his contract that allowed him to depart the company if he was unhappy. And Del Rio was very unhappy with the company, as he had been promised a main event push, but it wasn't delivered on. And on September 9th, 2016, it was officially confirmed that Del Rio had departed the WWE for the second and final time. Na 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 na, na 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 na, hey hey hey, good. In 2017, Del Rio would officially sign with TNA. He would sign for them during a very awkward time where they were having an identity crisis and didn't know whether they were TNA, GFW, Impact, or going out of business. He became a world champion in TNA, and I didn't even want to talk about his run there because it just depresses me. So I'm just going to play an extract from an old video where I talk about it and explain it quite well. So here it is. El Patron was positioned as the guy to be the top star of TNA when they merged with Global Force Wrestling, aka GFW. Alberto's first reign of the Impact World title took place on March 2nd, 2017, literally his first night in Impact. He won it from Bobby Lashley, however, he relinquished the title literally the next night, so what really was the point? So that was his first reign, 1 day long. On the May 11th episode of Impact, he defeated Magnus to win the GFW Global Championship and would go on to face Lashley for the TNA World title in a unification match at Slammiversary. which he won, thus unifying the titles and positioning Del Rio as the top star of GFW/Impact. To this day, we still don't really know what it was called. However, on July 12th, Del Rio was suspended by GFW due to a real-life domestic incident involving his then-girlfriend, WWE Women's Wrestler Paige. As a result of the suspension, he was stripped of the title, ending his reign at 40 days. And the rest of Del Rio's time in TNA was pretty lackluster anyway. He never really won any titles, and he was released from TNA in April 2018 due to no showing the Lucha Underground vs Impact event. I've also realized I've kept on calling it TNA when at this period it's just Impact, so ignore that. Del Rio was not the right guy to be positioned as the top guy in this time for the company. He was unreliable in terms of showing up to shows and very problematic behind the scenes, and I think there's a reason why no major company has really signed him since. It's been 3 years since Del Rio departed TNA, and he hasn't been signed to any major company since, and he probably never will, especially given recent news surrounding him. Oh yeah, let's talk about this arrest. Less than a week ago, on May 10th, it was reported that Del Rio had been arrested in Texas for sexual assault. The victim alleges that Del Rio took her downstairs, forced her to strip and dance for him, and proceeded to sexually assault her. The victim then claims that Del Rio told her not to tell anyone, or else he would take her child and leave him in the middle of the road somewhere. Del Rio has since been released from jail on a $50,000 bail, and a trial date is set for somewhere in the future. But it's safe to say, Del Rio, here's a massive middle finger to you. We always knew he was an ass given his history with Paige, but this just proves it and truly is a nail in the coffin for the career of Alberto Del Rio. It's unlikely we'll ever see him on a major platform ever again, and that's probably for the better. This has been the rise and fall of Alberto Del Rio. Thanks for watching, guys. If you did enjoy this video, smack the like button. Let me know in the comments what video you'd like to see next from me. Be sure to subscribe with notifications on. We're getting closer and closer to 200k. I really want to hit it. It would mean the world to me. But yeah, guys, like the video, subscribe with notifications on. I'll see you all soon. Goodbye, and keep on rolling.